All right. Well, once you get this front page filled out in the AgPlan financial tool, ready to dive into the data entry. So you should grab that ABC farms. I'm not able to get both screens to show, so I can't show you that with this one. But if you grab that file, there will be some data for us to practice with. And we're going to start developing the balance sheet here today. So we're going to go to and click on the Go to Balance Sheet Data Entry. And then we're going to start entering in some of the information from it. So luckily in this tough farming system, everything's kind of laid out right in order of what you need to do to go through and enter the data. Probably in your own farm that may not be the case, so you might have to gather information from a variety of places. So if you notice on page 3 where it says ABC Farm Balance Sheet, the assets file, that's what we're looking at here. So this is the detailed assets that we're getting into entering that side. And of course, again, the balance sheet is balancing your assets versus your liabilities. So we're gonna enter that all in here. So you notice right up front we have cash and checking balance there. So we'll want to enter in that value. One thing you don't do in this, I found out, is to use commas or dollar signs when you're entering the data. Just put the number in as it is. Otherwise, it doesn't recognize it as a number when you hit enter. So that automatically totals up for us in that file. You start to see the current assets are adding up here too. Going down the list there, we have some of our other cash assets that we have here that we want to add in. If you go down a few files, there's prepaid expenses. That's the file we have here. So you notice that on our ABC farm we have fuel that we prepaid $800. We have chemicals that we prepaid at a value of $20,300. We have fertilizer as well, and that is $27,984. And we have seed that we have $34,786 of seed that we purchased next year's growing season. All right. We have other accounts, other assets here. You notice we have a hedging account with the elevator. We can talk more about that a little later, but the idea of that is having some cash in place to do some marketing those products. This account will be about, that's cash value. Now that is a cash value account and current, and talk about it in our current assets. So one of the things that maybe as we're talking about this, the current assets that we're entering right now are cash and things that can become cash and used right away. So typically kind of a year's worth of cash assets. The non-current assets are things that have value but are harder to get the cash value back out, right? So like our equipment. Those things you notice: equipment, breeding livestock, business vehicles, land, buildings and improvements, that kind of thing. And then because we chose the personal, we'll have some other personal things that we have out here in these accounts, are some of the personal accounts that we need to take. All right, so we do have some equipment there. Where was it? Okay. Equipment, we have machinery line down the page just a little bit. I'm going to stick with the cash, the right line, the right column. I'm going to use those numbers for my, So I don't remember. I'm going to just stick with one of them, I guess. I don't have the exact number, which is which. We'll stick with the right line when I enter the data for this purpose. Alright. Breeding livestock is in there. They talk about the number of cattle. This balance sheet is only showing value, but you can enter in the number as well. So the value is what it's going to calculate the total value. I see it does have that. So the left line would have been cost value. I grab the market value. We'll just stick with that. You can choose either one. If you look in the middle of the page, I'm pointing at it. Of course, you can't see that. In the middle of the page there by the breeding livestock, it breaks it out. Above the breeding livestock column, there's a total cost value column and a total market value. That continues down through the whole page. I chose the wrong one, but I'm going to just stick with it. You could go ahead and change that if you would like. So, if you were entering this into FinPack, because it goes in a lot of different areas, it would take the numbers and divide that out. This one doesn't quite do that. So, you'll want to think about how are you going to have a record-keeping system that looks at the number of cattle and that kind of thing, so that when we get into enterprise budgets or keeping track of animals and where you're at with that kind of thing, you're going to want a record-keeping system for those details. This tool is more about the money, so it doesn't quite have detail for that in this particular entry box. But our breeding livestock is, we have 48 beef cows. And the total, and the market value or the cost value that they're listed is $500 per unit. So that's $24,000 total. Oops, I told you don't. I said be consistent, and I didn't do that, did I? So we're looking at market value in this my spreadsheet. Looking at market value, so it's that's $700 per unit. $33,600 is the value that they put on that. We have 5 heifers. With a market value of $400, so $2,000. And we have one bull with a market value of $900. All right. Other non-current assets that we have. We have here machinery we already got, so but vehicles, farm vehicles. I saw it. Oh, business vehicles. So we have the Ford 9000. Has a market value of $25,000. These numbers are, you'll notice in the sheet that this was in 2006, so the numbers might not be as accurate today. We have an F-150 pickup truck. Which is $23,000. We have our land. We have 82.5 acres that has a market value of $2,000 an acre. Total land value of $165. this is where you start to see the difference, right? I mean, the cost value there, they put it at 1,500. The market value they put at 2,000, which gives you quite a bit of difference in what you're looking at in assets of almost a $35,000 difference on your asset side of your balance sheet, depending on whether you chose market here, as well as the vehicles, everything that you see there. The market value is always again, when you're comparing apples to apples, as long as you keep it consistent, it should work. I just am leery of focusing on the market side, I guess. Other people would tell you to go ahead and focus on the market side. It's a perfectly fine thing to do. I'm going to leave that up to you to make that decision. My take is always so buildings. We have here. We have $56,000 is value for our buildings. Next page. Now we're moving on to our page 4, where we get some of our non-farm assets that this fund, that ABC Farms has. In this case, we have the different assets here. There's a stocks and bonds asset that has a market value $55.50. This is how you view it. Which is fun to see. We have cash value of life insurance. Value of 17,315. We're lucky enough to have a little retirement account put away. Put away for retirement at 25,439. A little word on that. I'm not a financial advisor, but I didn't start saving for retirement until I was well into my 30s, which means it's going to be harder for me to catch up. If you were well down there in your 18, 19, 20-year-old range and you start putting a little bit away, well, that compounds over time. You have a long saving period. If you can stick away a little bit away, it's a good way to go. Roth IRAs, maybe talk to a financial planner and figure that out. But I would advise don't make the mistake I did, because it's not that fun to try to catch up and go away. And I love my job, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to work forever. So. And then we had also on there some of real estate, personal real estate, which is in form of their house. And 72,000. Sure don't live around here. Right. Excellent. So now we have our total current assets that we had entered in here. $66,667.5. And then you'd want to do the liability side.